Hello everybody and welcome back to Daltodity. Hey guys, it's Dalton, and today I got something a little bit different to show you. As you've seen in the past 3 videos, we have this nice big beautiful set with this nice rock wall and Daltodity logo behind me in all the videos. And today I'm actually going to show you guys how I created this. The goal of this tutorial is to show you how you can make your own indoor realistic rock effect, whether it's for some interior design, you want to have a nice accent wall, or whatever the case may be. This tutorial will help show you guys how to do it yourself. Love a good DIY. Now, the Daltodity Studios is not very big. We're working with very limited space. Basically had about an 8-foot by 10-foot area to cram in construction, storage, and filming all into one. To do this, we came up with this sort of setup here with the shelves on one side and some tables and some permanent lighting setups. And then I had this big blank wall. This wall I knew was going to be the background for all the videos, which is what I'm in front of right now. Looks a little bit bigger on the camera, huh? I've always really wanted to have the Daltodity logo light up, and I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to do that, but I didn't want to just have a big light up logo behind me, so I came up with this idea here. Daltodity is all about creating things, whatever it may be, so I really wanted to have something that sort of seemed like the source of all of that creativity. So I came up with the idea of the Daltodity being a crystal that was found inside of a mine wall that basically has the power of creation and gives Daltodity, me, all of my powers. Moving forward with that idea, I needed to first start off with the base of the rock wall. To do this, I'm going to be using these 2 4-foot by 8-foot 2-inch sheets of pink insulation foam. This stuff is much denser than normal styrofoam. It is a tad bit more expensive than normal sheets of styrofoam, but you will actually save money in the long run because this stuff has a much smoother surface when it is carved, and it is also much denser, meaning you won't have to coat it in any sorts of plaster or cement or anything that you would normally use to coat foam. And then it also saves you so much time. You're not having to spend money on that. It's quicker, easier, go this route, trust me. I wanted to build it in 2 sections, that way it could be pulled apart and easily stored away if I had to move somewhere else. But the 2 sheets did not fit perfectly in the space allotted, so I cut them down to the size that fit and placed them on top of each other horizontally. Now I knew just throwing them up there like that was not gonna work because they definitely would not stay together. So I first added some thin strips of foam core to the back, gluing only part of it to the bottom piece. That way it gave a sort of wall for the top piece to lean against. I then put them back together with the foam core facing towards the wall. Then I added these small pieces just to sort of tack the 2 together temporarily while I was building it. Now that I had the pieces temporarily attached together, it was time to mark out where I wanted the D. To do this, I used this large Daltodity D cutout that I already have. I use this thing usually whenever I go to any like craft shows or anything like that where I'm selling products in person. I first set the camera up where I'm likely to film the most and use that to mark the visible parts of the foam. I then took the D, positioned it what looked like to be the middle, and started pinning it in place using push pins. I then traced it and removed the D. Now obviously I don't want this seam to be visible in all my videos. As you can see in the finished product, it is sadly much more visible than I originally intended it to be. Fortunately, when I'm standing up, it's not quite as noticeable, but when I'm sitting down like this, you can definitely see it behind me. Now it is time to start adding a more firm hold on the 2 pieces together, as well as trying to hide the seam. To do this, we're doing the same thing we did with the foam core on the back side, but on the front side with some more scrap pieces of foam. I start by cutting out the scrap pieces with my hot knife. This thing is super great. You do not have to use one of these. You can just use a very sharp razor blade, but since we're using such thick foam, a razor blade can become very dangerous because you're having to put much more force behind it, and it gets kind of scary. So if you do have a hot knife like this, or even a simple hot wire that you can get at most craft stores, I would definitely recommend using that. I cut out lots of irregular shapes using the hot knife and start gluing these along the seam. Some of them glued only to the top portion and some only to the bottom portion. That way it can be moved up and down like this. Now, if you want your seam really hidden, you should really add a piece going along the entire thing, but I was trying to work with just the scraps that I had, and using less pieces will make it much more temporary, which is what I really needed. But as you can see, the seam is fairly noticeable still in the final product. Fortunately, it's not too noticeable when I'm standing up filming, but when I'm sitting down like this, you can see it, which kind of sucks, but it'll do for now. Once I find a more permanent location, I'll go back and patch it up a little bit better. But for now, this will do. Alright, so now we have the two pieces sort of attached together temporarily. And while we're working on it, I'm just going to have it leaned up against the wall. Later on, we will attach it a bit more permanently. But for now, just leaning it up will do just fine. I then use my hot knife to go back and cut out a bunch of other irregular shapes using the remainder scraps of the 2-inch foam. Making sure to cut out some that are really big, some that are really small, and scattering them very randomly. Adding these scraps on is going to help give the rocks much more depth, as it'll help when sculpting to make some rocks look like they are sticking out even further. All of these pieces, of course, are attached using hot glue. You can use a stronger glue if you prefer, but this is the quickest drying glue that you can use. This stuff is dense enough that the glue will not melt the foam using a hot heat gun. Now that all these pieces are attached, it is time to start sculpting. I first go in with my hot knife and start cutting off any edges of the thick pieces that I have added on, just to start helping them blend down into the other surface. Once all these pieces are somewhat blended down, I then go in with my loop tool on my heat gun. This thing is super amazing. I love it. You can bend it to any shape you want and then pull the trigger of your hot knife and start carving away. It's just like a loop tool for clay, but it's super hot and it's for foam. I personally like the look of starting with some long divots that go up the rock surface. And once I got all of the large areas sort of blocked out, I went in and it was time to start carving the detail. For this, I used both the loop tool on the hot knife, as well as a plain old razor blade that is slightly dull. I cut out lots of sort of irregular lines and curves and dents with the loop tool, and then where the real detail came in was with the razor blade. This thing was really great because you could sort of just cut with it and then use it to also rip and scratch the surface of the rocks, and this gave it a very crumbly look. When the foam is picked out with this dull blade, it leaves behind lots of little rubble looking pieces, which is super amazing. Do this all over, you can get as detailed or as not, whatever is going to look best for you. For me, everything was going to be seen through a camera, so it was much more important for me what the camera saw rather than what it looks like in person. Two very different things. So I wasn't trying to go for anything too extremely detailed, I just needed something that was going to look good from slightly far away, because the camera was never actually going to be that close up. Once the details are all sculpted in, it is time to seal up the foam. After sculpting all that, you have lots of dangly bits, so heat sealing it is the perfect route to go. Just take a heat gun, heat it up very hot, and then just slowly run it over the entire surface. Now, warning, be careful when working near the seam. I heated up a bit too much, which made it pull apart, which is also a reason why it is a bit more visible in the end product. If I had not heat sealed the areas around the seam, it would have been much tighter. Once I finished carving everything, I went back in with my loop tool and made it very narrow this time and began carving out the logo. This part was super easy, I already had it traced on, so all I had to do was follow my markings. I made the hole about 1.5 inches deep, did not want to go through the entire thickness of the foam, just enough to add some lights in later on. Now that all of that is done, like I said earlier, we can skip the sealing part. This is very firm now, and it is time to move on to paint. I first put 2 coats of a gray interior flat paint. I watered it down just a little bit, that way when I painted it down, it got into all the nooks and crannies. Now it is time to add a bit of detail. Now detailing this by hand would be very difficult and take a very long time, which going in by hand and doing some super details is probably preferable if you're using this for decoration in your house. But for me, like I said, it was more important for what the camera saw. So what I did is I actually just took several cheap spray bottles that I got from the dollar store, put in a little bit of some different colored paints, mainly some blacks, whites, grays, and browns, and then I just watered them down until they were able to spray out of the bottle. And then I just went to town spraying the different colors all over different areas. I spray some colors more in some areas and different colors more in other areas, giving it a slightly patchy look. I then also take the original gray color, dilute that inside of a spray bottle, and spray that over everything as well, just to sort of blend it all together. And then I let this dry very well. Then it was time for a camera test. I brought the pieces back up the stairs and put them where they're going to go, put the lights on it, and turn the camera on. And as you can see, this is what it now looks like. I was pretty happy with how it looked and decided to stop there, but if you would like something different, you can always change it up. You can add in some artificial shadows and highlights if you want. I felt like I did not need to, as there were some natural ones created by the lights pointed in both directions at the wall. But of course, paint it whatever you want. Now for the fun part, and not super easy part. It's time to add the lights. Now for this, I'm using a strip of RGB LED lights. This one I think is about 6 feet long. I will leave a link below in the description where I order these, so you can order the exact same ones if you want. You of course can wire them and program them any way you like, but I opted to buy this little piece here. You can attach it to the end and you can control it using any Wi-Fi powered smart device, meaning you can hook it up to your Google speaker or your Alexa or whatever and have them turn it on and off if you want. Or there's this really nifty phone app where you can go in and control the colors yourself. I did not personally feel comfortable wiring up the LEDs myself, as I'm not too experienced with it and I really didn't want to mess this up because I was on a tight budget. So I went ahead and just got a long piece and decided to string them through the entire letter. I used the hot knife to cut some holes where needed, and then I began stringing it through. I basically used a combination of the adhesive that was already on the back of the LEDs plus some hot glue and some tape to tape everything into place. If need be, you can run everything through, but before you glue it in place, just to make sure you have enough and that it is arranged in a way that you like. Once the lights were in place like so, I then cut out some sheets of styrofoam in the shape of the logo and glued these on top of it. This helped to diffuse the light immensely. You don't want it to be too harsh in any spots. As you can see, there are some spots that it is a little bit brighter than others, but this worked out for what I wanted because I wanted it to be a crystal, and so naturally some parts would be brighter and some parts would be that sort of like white crusty part on the crystal. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. Once that was done, it honestly looked pretty good. Like, it would have looked fine on camera, but for any up close shots I got, I wanted it to look a little bit better. So to give it a more crystal-like look, I took a combination of Warbla's crystal art and the transparent art that we used in the wand making video that you should definitely go and check out. I used the combination of these two to add a clear crystal-like finish over top of the entire thing. I basically just heated up a small amount since it cools very quickly, and then placed it on and blended it in. Make sure when using this stuff that you wear gloves. I do not want anybody out there getting burnt. That is very important. If you want more tips and tricks on using these materials, make sure you do go back and check out that wand video because I do go more in depth on how to safely and properly use them. Plus, this wand's just pretty cool, and I know you want to make one. I know you want to. That's right, I'm talking to bippity boppity you. Make a wand, oh yeah. Anyway, once that was complete, the wall was done. You now have a very realistic wall. I personally really love this. This transformed this small little work area in a place that really felt a lot more professional and helped, I think at least, give the videos a much more professional look, which makes me a lot happier. I'm much happier knowing that I'm putting out content that is of a higher caliber than I did in the past. Makes me happier. It makes me want to be up here. It makes me want to do it. Just the glow of this thing, like in the dark, it's cool. Like, it makes me happy. I like it. I hope you guys like it. And if you make your own cool rock wall, make sure you share it with us on Instagram at Daltodity, or on Twitter, or whatever else. All at Daltodity, spelled the exact same way it is here. And if you like this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. It is so helpful. And if you've not already, but you would like to, make sure you subscribe down below and maybe even hit that little bell icon. It does things, potentially. Does it? I don't know. It might, but you might want to click it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you real soon with another video. Alright, bye.